Marcy, Skylight, Gray, Cliff, and Redfield done. Now the long walk back to the lodge. 3:55 a.m., just signed in. Santanoni Range, let's go. The wind is whipping here in the Seward Range today. Just finished the Macomb slide and my legs are on fire. Well, I fell victim to the floating logs again. Made it to the top of East Dix. Peak number 3 of 5 for today here in the Dix Range. Avalanche Pass. On top of Rocky Peak Bridge. It's like a hurricane up here. Rain and wind here on Tabletop. Whiteface, number 6. Muddy day here on Street and Nye for number 7 and 8. Sunny and blue on Haystack. Algonquin, up in the clouds, number 18. Gothic's number 22. Panther, number 38. Allen, number 45. 7:12 a.m. Big Slide, Adirondack 46er. You're listening to the 46 of 46 podcast. January 9th, 2020. My first High Peaks hike of the year and my first time back to the majestic mountain which I finished my 46er journey on, Big Slide Mountain. It was a Thursday morning, and throughout the week we received a good foot or more of nice, fluffy, powdery snow here in the Adirondacks and the High Peaks region, so I knew today's hike would be a perfect winter hike. I also wasn't hiking solo today for a change, so that was nice. I'll be going with my friend Jonathan Zaharik, who many of you listening may be familiar with his Adirondack hiking YouTube channel. It's pretty popular. And 2 of his friends who I'd meet today, Kira and Stefan. Jonathan's working on a winter 46er video and photo project, so Kira and Stefan were helping to shoot some footage for that, and I was just along for the hike. We planned to sign in at 4:30 a.m., my favorite start time, to allow us to be at the summit for the sunrise for 2 reasons. 1, Jonathan's photo project, and 2, because a sunrise hike is awesome. If you've never done a sunrise hike, and particularly a winter one, and you've never seen that orangish, reddish morning glow rising over the mountains, you have to add it to your to-do list as soon as possible. It's phenomenal. So with that start time in mind, I left my house in Lake Placid at 3:50 a.m., started driving to Keene Valley to the Garden parking lot. Through the Cascades, through Keene, into Keene Valley, turning right to go to the Garden, and I pulled into the mostly empty Garden at 4:15 a.m., where one car was sitting there with its lights on, Stefan's car, and then a few minutes later, Kira pulled in. And then about 20 minutes later, Jonathan arrived. Once he arrived, we all suited up, or in my case, suited down. While Jonathan and the others were getting ready to hike, strapping on their snowshoes and everything else, I was already set to start hiking. And since I was waiting for them, I was a wee bit chilly, since I had already taken all my layers off. So I'm here at the Garden parking lot, about to hike Big Slide. It is almost 5 a.m. My friend Jonathan is here, going hiking with him, and 2 of his friends, Kira and Stefan, who I just met. Should be a good day. It's going to be clear when we get to the top. It is windy and really cold right now. They are currently getting their snowshoes on and whatnot, and I am delayered and ready to move, and I am freezing. I cannot wait to start moving so I can warm up because it is frigid. But it should be a nice day. We've had lots of powdery snow in the last few days, so I expect a perfect day on the trail, hopefully. So you can imagine I was pretty eager for them to finish getting ready so I could warm up and start hiking. Today I started out wearing base layers on top and bottom, water-resistant hiking pants, a Techwick t-shirt, hat, and just liner gloves. I had rain shells and other layers tucked away in my pack, of course. So I was a bit cold and antsy to start moving to warm up. Plus it was cold and windy. Fortunately, the first half of Big Slide is a real gasser and gets the body and heart pumping immediately, right from the start. So we were all ready to go, getting a slightly later start than planned, but we walked up and over the 5-foot snowbank in front of the trailhead registry and signed in at 5 a.m. Time to hit the trail. Oh, and did I mention it was -2 degrees when we started? Big Slide Mountain is the 27th highest peak in the Adirondacks, standing 4,240 feet elevation, with 2,800 feet of elevation gain on this roughly 7.5-mile out and back trip via the Brothers Route. This steep from the start hike enjoys lots of open rock ledges as the trail traverses up and over the Brothers towards the summit, allowing for lots of places to stop and take in the views throughout the hike, a mountain worth visiting over and over again. We were signed in and started moving up the Brothers route, which begins directly at the trail registry as you take a right onto the trail, instead of going straight towards Johnsbrook Lodge. It was dark, windy, and frigid cold this morning, making for a very fun vibe in the woods, however. To start, Jonathan led up front, followed by Stefan, then Kira was third in line, and I was fourth as we began the hike. Today was going to be a clear, sunny day, and we were coming off a couple days where we received lots of fresh, powdery snow, so the trails were in pristine condition. Just enough people had hiked the day prior to be able to see exactly where the trail is, with a few inches of fresh powder on top waiting for us. It was pretty perfect. As we started hiking, I was warming up nicely, except for my hands, which just wouldn't get warm. So since I was only wearing liner gloves, as I often don't wear a hat or gloves while moving because I found that keeps me from sweating pretty well, today I needed the hat and the full gloves. So I unclipped my gloves from my backpack strap where I attached them and put them on in my attempt to warm up. But they were already frozen.
I can't feel my fingers anymore. They're numb.
Ooh, maybe you should wear these extra gloves. My hands are starting to get sweaty.
Extra gloves? You've had this pair of extra gloves this whole time?
Yeah, we're in the Rockies.
I'm going to kill you.
What?
Whew, it was chilly out there. The trail up Big Slide right from the start climbs at a very steady pace, so if you've never hiked this mountain, be prepared for the first half to be very physically demanding. Once up and over the first brother, about a mile in, there are points where the trail levels off a bit. You can breathe and catch your breath, but overall I'd say the first 2.5 miles will certainly test how in shape you are. So keep that in mind if you do hike here. However, just go at whatever pace you need to go to push through and make it to the top. The four of us were hiking at a very nice steady pace as the dark woods around us kept dropping snow off the trees from the fast gusts of wind coming from all directions. This was also the first time I've ever hiked with more than one person. Hiking with a group of 4 made for a very different feel. The woods at this hour didn't have quite as spooky a vibe as they often do when you're solo, let alone with 3 other people. It's also neat being able to speak with multiple people. I will say I rather liked it. Some people hike solo because they prefer it. I just hike solo because I just can't find someone to come with me most of the time. But anyways, we carried on up the trail, winding and weaving through the woods. Breathing heavier, but not too heavy, as the trail was pretty easy to follow at this point. My hands, however, still would not warm up. They were just frozen. Specifically, my thumbs, on both hands. I'm not sure why, but my thumbs were the only cold part of my body. My chest, good. Feet, good. Arms, good. Head, good. Thumbs, frozen and completely useless, and about to fall off my hands. Fortunately, I don't need my thumbs too often when hiking. Stupid thumbs. We made it up the first brother in excellent time. The lights from Keene Valley down below and the Great Range and so many more mountains silhouette in front of us. Awesome. The wind, of course, when coming out onto the open rock face was blowing nicely. Not 50-mile-per-hour winds or anything like that, but enough to want to quickly get up and over and back into the tree line as fast as possible. Shortly after the first brother, we came to a ledge to climb that required grabbing onto an edge of the overhang, hoisting yourself up, crawling on your knees for a couple steps, and then standing up. It was the first moment where we had to stop and think how we're going to get up. First went Jonathan, who after a try or two figured out a good way up, and through it he went. And then Kira went second, getting caught by her snowshoes in the middle of the climb because snowshoes make these sorts of climbs very difficult at times. And then I went up and through by grabbing the ledge in a different manner, followed by Stefan, who like Kira had trouble climbing up due to his snowshoes getting in the way and making it more difficult than it should have been. And note, I was only wearing micro spikes, not my snowshoes today, since the amount of snow on the trail, in my opinion, didn't quite necessitate a definite need for snowshoes. A note on snowshoes. Snowshoes have their place and they're a must out in the backcountry for so many reasons, but I feel today's conditions could have gone either way if someone were to wear snowshoes or not. The DEC rule is that 8 inches of snow requires, by law, snowshoes to be worn. Without wearing them in that deep of snow, post-holing starts to happen where your legs go all the way in and you just leave these giant holes on the trail. Once the fresh snow hardens, those are disastrous to the trail, to other hikers, to the animals, and they can cause unexpected injuries out in the backcountry. There certainly wasn't 8 inches of snow on the trail today, but there was probably anywhere from 2 to 5 inches, depending on the section of trail. With this in mind, while 8 inches is the DEC rule, I feel the common courtesy rule to your fellow hikers is to put the snowshoes on when there's around 5 inches of snow, consistently. I was also the last of the bunch, so by the time I walked on the trail, 3 people with snowshoes had already stomped the light powder down. Had I gone first and led like Jonathan did, I'd likely have put my snowshoes on, though. That's just my 2 cents on snowshoes. I'm not a huge fan of wearing them, and I feel they're just another tool in the toolbox to be used at the appropriate time, whereas others are snowshoes all the time type people. And that's cool if that's your style. Have at it. It just doesn't happen to be mine when the imprint will be the same depth with or without. The night was still very much upon us as we kept pushing up the trail, since our goal was to be on the summit for sunrise. The sun, however, was starting to show itself as the first light began to appear, with the dark maroon red glow over the tops of the mountains, while the star-filled sky above remained black and clear. It was going to be a perfect sunrise, so we kept pushing. Plugging along in the trail here, the sun is starting to come up. You can see the nice red glow over the mountains in the foreground here, which is pretty awesome. Soon they'll kind of be pretty orangey. Not sure if we're going to make it to the top in time for the sunrise, but fortunately, Big Slide has lots of different places to enjoy the scenery and the views before you get to the summit. Since we're going on the Brothers route, lots of lookouts throughout. So it should be all right. But so far, looks pretty awesome. So I expect good things. And the wind isn't too bad at this moment, which is nice. Up the trail we went, and suddenly I started noticing something strange. I had full feeling again in my thumbs. Awesome. But now both of my middle fingers were frozen. Damn it. For whatever reason, my 2 middle fingers were now just frozen solid this time, but my thumbs had regained life. Everything else was warm. Head, feet, body, arms, thumbs. But my middle fingers, frozen. Classic. We kept pushing up the trail, through the snow-filled forest as the new powder falls off bent-over snow-covered trees when we walk underneath them, where the snow just lands on the back of your neck. You know the feeling. Cold and annoying. But it truly was a perfect and picturesque winter wonderland that day. Everything we could have hoped for. I mean, slightly warmer temperatures would have been cool and not having frozen middle fingers and thumbs, but, beggars can't be choosers, but it was great nonetheless. Despite us moving at a consistent pace, it was becoming more and more clear that we weren't going to make the true summit by sunrise. Since Big Slide has so many lookouts up the Brothers Trail, it's a great sunrise choice to get to watch the sunrise if you don't quite make it to the summit in time. With this in mind, since Jonathan needed specific content for his photography project, he broke off and went ahead of us after we all passed over the third brother. This way he could make it to the summit in time since he had a mission to accomplish. So the 3 of us continued up the trail together, following in Jonathan's footsteps. Literally. But also kind of figuratively. But very much literally. The sun was rising, and every time we'd come across a hole in the trees, we could see the brighter orange glow. It was simply unbelievable. I had noticed myself getting colder and tingly when I touched my chest, despite feeling warm, but it was tingly to the touch. So I felt it was time to throw on another layer. I put on an EMS mid-layer fleece, and it was the right amount of layering at this point in the hike. If you're not used to winter hiking, it's all about taking layers off, putting layers on, taking layers off, putting layers on throughout the day. Once the trail makes its way over the third brother, the majority of the hard labor for the hike is over, and the next mile and change getting to the summit isn't too bad, other than a little steepness at the end, but there's a nice flat walk between the third brother and the final push to the summit that's helpful. At this point, we all sort of hiked at our own pace. Kira was in front. Stefan, who was exhausted from being out hiking the day before, was a bit behind, and I stayed in the middle, always having eyes on both of them. So Jonathan went out in front of us. He's on his way up to the summit. Get up there a little faster than we are at the moment so we don't miss the sunrise. Kira is a little in front of me, and Stefan is a little bit behind me. Just kind of cruising. We just passed the third brother. Now we're in the kind of area between the two. Trail is still very nice. The winter all around is pretty awesome. All the trees covered in snow, nice powdery snow, nice soft trail. It's a perfect day out here. Still cold, but I do have feelings in all my fingers again, so that's cool. That's a plus. Should be at the summit probably in around